Hey guys, tonight we're waltzing right into one of history's weirdest masquerade balls, the life of a 1950s housewife, where the greatest threats to your existence aren't bears, bandits, or the Black Death, but mismatched salad forks, and the possibility that you might have, brace yourself, forgotten to iron the bed sheets. Yes, this is a world where etiquette isn't just a suggestion. It's a full-contact sport, and the penalty for dropping your white gloves could be social exile, mild marital disappointment, or the spontaneous combustion of your neighbor's respect. So before you tuck yourself in, take a second to like the video and subscribe, but only if you actually enjoy what I do here. Leave a comment, letting me know where you're listening from and what time it is for you. Now, dim those lights, switch on a fan for a gentle, non-judgmental white noise, and get comfortable. Maybe surround yourself with a few decorative throw pillows for that authentic 19-ounce 50s energy. Let's pause a moment. Have you ever wondered what it really felt like to live as a post-war housewife? How many pairs of gloves did you need just to make toast? Was there an etiquette manual for eating Jell-o with embedded fruit? What happened if your skirt hem was a quarter-inch off? Would you be excommunicated for serving canned soup at a dinner party? Or was that a sign of modern sophistication? Could you survive a Tupperware party without passing out from polite excitement? Would you rather face a medieval bear than explain to your mother-in-law why your curtains and tablecloths clash? And now, congratulations. You've just woken up in a split-level home somewhere in 1956. The linoleum is gleaming, your pearls are on, and your coffee is probably laced with just a touch of existential dread. Good luck. Before you can even make breakfast, you're already faced with a textile dilemma. Which gloves for which occasion? There's a glove for church, a glove for shopping, a glove for dusting the piano, and, if you're very daring, a scandalously short glove for cocktail hour. Each one is less about warmth and more about silently signaling that you know the rules, and, more importantly, that you can spot a faux pas at 20 paces. Forgetting your gloves is like showing up at work without pants. Only the neighbors might actually notice this time. Let's set the scene. It's 7:30 a.m., the sun is shining politely through your kitchen curtains, and you're already staring down a row of gloves lined up on the hall table, all perfectly pressed and filled with the silent judgment of 1,000 grandmothers. Somewhere in the background, the radio is murmuring about Eisenhower and the merits of canned pineapple. But you have bigger problems. Today is Sunday, church day. That means the white kid gloves, wrist length, with tiny pearl buttons that mock you with their smug, impossible to fasten optimism. You slide your fingers in, trying to look serene while internally waging war against a piece of elastic that would rather snap than submit. But maybe it's Tuesday instead, grocery shopping day. Suddenly, the white gloves are all wrong, and you're reaching for pale beige. Something practical but not too practical. Too sturdy, and you'll look like you're going to rob the butcher. Too delicate, and you'll be the talk of the produce aisle. For extra points, you might coordinate your gloves with your handbag, your shoes, and your overall air. I have not cried in the pantry this week. Thank you very much. Now, let's talk about the dusting glove. Yes, it's a thing. In the 1950s, housework isn't just about making things clean. It's about doing it with flair, dignity, and the faint scent of lemon pledge. The proper glove for dusting is cotton, preferably past its prime, but still pristine enough that you wouldn't be mortified if the mailman peeked through the window. Pro tip, you never dust with bare hands. Bare-handed dusting is a gateway to chaos, a sign that you have given up on civilization and probably on yourself. Then there are the driving gloves, not just for men speeding down the highway in a Studebaker, but for women running the endless errands that 1950s suburbia demands. Driving gloves are buttery soft, often perforated for breathability, because nothing says elegance like ventilated knuckles. These are meant to protect your delicate hands from the steering wheel, which, in the summer, could double as a stovetop. Forgetting your driving gloves might mean arriving at the post office with palms as red as a lobster and a reputation as someone who just doesn't try hard enough. Next up, the party glove. Slightly shorter, possibly in pastel, these gloves are all about showing your fun, but not too fun. If you wear these before 5 p.m., prepare for raised eyebrows from anyone over the age of 50. Wear them after 8 p.m., and you're sending a message, possibly that you've read a magazine from Paris, which is both thrilling and mildly suspicious. Don't forget the gardening gloves. These are, technically, gloves, but in the same way, a bath towel is technically formal wear. No one really expects you to wear them in public, but you absolutely must own a pair, just in case someone asks about your roses and you need to prove you've never touched actual dirt. Finally, the emergency glove. A nondescript pair kept in your handbag at all times. For when your primary gloves betray you by getting a smudge or, horror of horrors, going missing. A true 1950s housewife can produce a backup glove like a magician produces a rabbit, quickly, seamlessly, and with no sign of panic. Every glove is more than fabric. It's a silent social handshake. The wrong choice, and you risk neighborhood exile. The right choice, and you glide through your day with the easy grace of someone who knows exactly how many spoons to lay for afternoon tea. And if you ever doubted the stakes, just remember, it's not the house or the casserole that makes you fit in. It's the gloves. Lose them, and you might as well have invited chaos to dinner. And if, in your rush, you end up wearing mismatched gloves to the grocery store, just keep your head high, smile serenely, and pray no one brings it up at bridge club. That, or start a trend and claim it's French. Either way, you've survived another day in the Suburbia Etiquette Olympics by the skin of your perfectly gloved hands. In the 1950s, making the bed isn't just about straightening the sheets. It's about achieving a level of hospital corner tightness that could bounce a nickel or a small child into orbit. God forbid the quilt be wrinkled after 8 a.m. You'll need to remake it before your husband gets home, just in case he's accompanied by surprise clergy or the ladies' auxiliary. The stakes, domestic dignity, and maybe a backache that will haunt you for decades. Let's set the stage. The alarm clock buzzes at a polite but insistent 6:30 a.m., and before you've even tasted coffee, you're in the bedroom, eyeing the bed, as if preparing for a military operation. In the 1950s, the bed is not merely a piece of furniture. It is the altar upon which your reputation as a housewife is either sanctified or sacrificed. The sheets must be as crisp as your public smile, and the quilt must be so smooth it reflects sunlight in a way that says, "No children or husbands have touched this since 1947. First, you strip the sheets with the precision of a neurosurgeon. No crumpled corners, no lingering wrinkles. If your pillowcases don't match, congratulations. You've just invited neighborhood scandal and possibly opened a portal to a dimension where Martha Stewart is your parole officer. Next, you reach for the iron, a weapon of domestic warfare. In a time before wrinkle-free fabric, every pillowcase and top sheet must be ironed into submission. The steam rises in delicate clouds, mingling with the faint aroma of starch and barely suppressed frustration. Hospital corners come next. For the uninitiated, these are folds so sharp and symmetrical they would make an origami master weep. You tuck the flat sheet with a swift, almost aggressive movement, then fold it back over itself at precisely a 45-degree angle. Tug, smooth, repeat. If you're feeling really bold, You'll even iron the top of the blanket directly on the bed, just for that extra edge. In this era, people iron their sheets not because they want to, but because they fear what will happen if they don't. Let's not forget the pillows. Never just one, and never just lying there like ordinary pillows. Each must be plumped, stacked, and arranged according to a secret code passed down from your grandmother, her grandmother, and a mysterious Victorian ancestor who apparently had nothing better to do. Shams go in the back, decorative pillows in the front, and one oddly shaped accent pillow that serves no function except to remind you who's really in charge here. The result? A bed that looks less like a place to sleep and more like a department store display you're not allowed to touch. It's now 7:05 a.m. You step back to admire your work, breathing in that rare moment of quiet pride. But don't get comfortable. At some point between breakfast and lunch, one or more children will crash through, dragging a sticky hand or a questionable toy, undoing 3 generations of bed-making wisdom in 5 seconds flat. The cat may launch a full-scale invasion, or your husband may rest his eyes in a way that somehow tangles all the sheets into an interpretive sculpture. By 3 p.m., you're back at it. Bed-making. Round 2. Because the 1950s housewife knows you're only as respected as your bed is smooth. If your husband comes home and the bed looks slept in, it's an 82 invitation for him to ask, "Rough day?" Or, worse, for your mother-in-law to conduct a surprise linen inspection. And yes, that's a real thing. Compare this to modern life. Today, making the bed is often optional, a sign of optimism, or a rare burst of productivity. In the 1950s, skipping the bed means social chaos. Imagine the anxiety of missing a work deadline. But the deadline is daily, and the boss is every neighbor with a window facing your driveway. So you smooth, tuck, fluff, and repeat every day, twice a day, in a ritual equal parts discipline, performance art, and subtle cry for help. And when you finally collapse into bed at night, careful not to disturb your own masterpiece. You might just dream of a world where beds make themselves, and pillow shams are only a myth. Until then, sleep tight, and may your corners always be hospital sharp. You thought breakfast was a casual affair? Think again. In the 1950s, the first meal of the day is choreographed like Swan Lake. Toast must be buttered with the correct knife. Bacon arranged in an inviting, but not lascivious, curl, and coffee poured with the silent grace of a trained ninja. Serving orange juice in the wrong glass is enough to have the neighbors whispering that you weren't raised right. Let's set the table. Literally. The 1950s breakfast isn't thrown together in a desperate 5 minutes while you answer emails in your pajamas. It's an event, a ritual, a daily display of poise and precision. You rise before anyone else, pad to the kitchen in your dressing gown, never a ratty robe, what are you, a bohemian, and begin the morning's performance. The table is set the night before. Tablecloth smooth as a billiards table, napkins crisply folded, plates perfectly aligned. The silverware is so polished you can almost see the stress in your own eyes. Now, the order of operations is crucial. You cannot, under any circumstances, set out the butter before the toast is ready. This would invite social chaos and possibly the wrath of your own mother's ghost. Toast is a serious business. White bread, gently browned, never burnt, must be immediately transferred to a waiting rack to prevent sogginess. Soggy toast is the mark of the careless. Your reputation, and possibly your place in the family will, depends on keeping it crisp. Next comes the buttering. Never, ever with the dinner knife, and certainly not with a spoon. There's a dedicated butter knife, often monogrammed, possibly inherited, and definitely anxiety-inducing. Butter must be served in a cold ceramic dish, never left to languish in its wrapper on the counter like some commoner's margarine. If the butter is too hard, you wait. You never scrape at it. Scraping at the butter is how you end up alone with a bad haircut. Bacon, meanwhile, is not simply flung onto the plate. It is arranged. Curled, yes, but not too curled, or it sends a message you do not want to send at 7:30 in the morning. If you think this is overkill, remember, in the 1950s, you're not just making breakfast, you're making a statement. And the statement is, look, I have conquered both gravity and cholesterol. Eggs, if you're serving them, come with their own sub-rules. Scrambled eggs should be fluffy, but not runny. Yellow, but not suspiciously bright. No one trusted an egg that looked too enthusiastic. Fried eggs must have the yolk perfectly centered. Poached eggs? Don't. Not unless you're prepared to explain yourself to the local women's club. Let's not even start on cereal. If you must serve it, perhaps the children have worn you down, it is poured into a bowl with steady hands and followed by cold milk from a glass pitcher. Cereal boxes never, ever go on the table. Unless you want to risk being mistaken for someone who lets their dog up on the furniture. Juice is served in a specific glass, short and squat for orange juice, tall and elegant for tomato. Grapefruit is served in its own segmented dish with a dainty serrated spoon that only comes out for this one purpose. It's possible that more time is spent polishing this spoon each year than is spent eating grapefruit, but that's beside the point. Finally, coffee. This is the real ceremony. Coffee is poured for others first, not yourself. Etiquette above caffeine, always. Sugar and cream are offered, not assumed. The pot is rotated so the handle faces the guest, not yourself. A small but crucial act that separates the merely polite from the truly genteel. All of this is conducted with a quiet urgency. The children must be dressed and sent to school. The husband must depart for the office believing himself to be the luckiest man alive, and you must face the day knowing you survived yet another breakfast without shattering the fragile piece of suburbia. So, the next time you grab a breakfast bar on your way out the door, remember, you are a rebel, a pioneer, a maverick in yoga pants. And as for the toast, it will never judge you, unlike, say, the ladies' auxiliary. You haven't really lived until you've prepared to welcome your spouse home like a minor royal. The house is spotless, the children are sanitized, and you're expected to look fresh as a daisy, even if you've spent the day wrestling a Hoover. Smile at precisely 78% intensity, straighten his tie, and never ever mention the broken washing machine or the fact that you still have one eyebrow after a failed beauty experiment. Let's set the scene. It's 5:15 p.m. and the clock is ticking. The living room is free of rogue toys and unsanctioned dust bunnies. The smell of pot roast drifts optimistically through the air, and the children, previously sticky and suspiciously wild, are arranged on the sofa in order of height, looking either angelic or deeply traumatized by the experience of having their hair forcibly parted. You, meanwhile, have changed out of your housework uniform, a robe, and a 1,000-yard stare, and into a day dress with a perky collar, and, if you're feeling daring, a little fresh lipstick applied with trembling hope in the last 3 minutes before the garage door rattles. In the world of the 1950s, the moment your husband steps through the door is less of a reunion and more of a performance. The etiquette manuals of the day actually outline suggestions for your greeting. Brush your hair, tidy your makeup, greet him with a soft voice and a gentle smile. If you're feeling especially ambitious, you might even slip your feet into a pair of house heels. Yes, shoes meant exclusively for standing in the living room while pretending you haven't been on your feet all day. It's not just a welcome, It's an audition for the role of most appreciative spouse, and the judges are everyone you know, living and dead. His arrival is announced by the unmistakable squeak of the screen door, the keys jingling like an ominous bell. You gather the children, shushing any last-minute confessions about broken lamps or hidden frogs, and position yourself in the foyer, smile locked and loaded. The door opens, and you deliver your lines. "Welcome home, dear," with the precise tone of someone who absolutely did not just scream at a recalcitrant vacuum or fish a toy car out of the toilet. He steps in, and you take his coat, making small talk about his day at work, never about yours, unless you're prepared to explain the intricacies of coupon clipping and pie crust shrinkage to a man who thinks the laundry folds itself. You resist the urge to mention that the washing machine has started making a sound like a dying walrus, or that the cat has eaten part of the curtains again. The performance is seamless. His slippers are waiting, his newspaper is neatly folded, and you're standing there as the embodiment of calm domestic competence. What's not discussed? Your own day, which has included scrubbing mysterious substances off, the kitchen linoleum, negotiating a ceasefire between warring children, and discovering that the dog has acquired a taste for freshly washed socks. But etiquette demands self-restraint. So you save the existential dread for after dinner, ideally shared with a trusted friend and a stiff drink in the privacy of the backyard. The children chime in with, "Welcome home, Daddy," in unison. If you've managed to bribe them with the promise of dessert, any deviation from the script, a whine, a frown, a question about missing allowance money, is swiftly redirected with the ease of a seasoned diplomat. The goal is simple. Present a harmonious, loving household, one free of discord, dirty dishes, and honest emotional feedback. Compare this scene to modern times, and it's hard not to laugh. Today, the average homecoming is a blur of backpacks, a dog barking, someone shouting, "What's for dinner?" and at least one person video calling from the kitchen. But in the 1950s, the greeting is a sacred ritual, a dance where every step, every smile, every word has been practiced until it's second nature. When it's over, and he's settled with his slippers and paper, you can finally exhale. You've survived another performance. And if your mascara has started to flake, or you're fresh as a daisy energy is fading fast, just remember, nobody can keep up the act forever. But in the 1950s, you had to try, at least until after dessert. Hosting coffee for the neighborhood ladies? Prepare for a minefield of etiquette. Your cups must match. Your cookies must be homemade, or store-bought and cunningly disguised. And you must never mention anything that isn't simultaneously bland and slightly judgmental. Remember, decaf is for the weak, and instant coffee is for those who have given up on happiness. It all begins at 9:45 a.m., long before anyone actually rings the bell. You're already sweating, hands trembling as you stack the good china, matching floral cups with saucers so fragile they seem to break if you so much as look at them wrong. Any chip, crack, or suspicious fading is quickly hidden in the back of the cupboard, next to the holiday mugs you're pretending you don't own. Each teaspoon is polished to a blinding shine. The sugar bowl is filled, the creamer is chilled, and the coffee, brewed to the exact strength your grandmother would have approved, capable of dissolving both fatigue and minor household regrets. The snacks, of course, require their own covert operation. If you dare to serve store-bought cookies, you must transfer them to a proper tin and mash them gently so they look just a little irregular, homemade by plausible deniability. There's always one woman in the group who will nibble a biscuit and, with a sweet smile, ask, "Is this your own recipe?" You must answer with a vague but enthusiastic, "Oh, it's just a little something I whipped up." If caught with a branded box, you risk social banishment. or worse, being volunteered to organize next month's bridge night. By 10 sharp, the doorbell rings, never early, never late. Ladies enter in formation, each one cloaked in pastel optimism and the faint aroma of floral perfume. Handbags are clutched with military discipline, gloves are discreetly tucked away, and hats, if worn, are carefully placed on the coat rack, ready to be reclaimed at the first hint of awkward silence. Greetings are exchanged, each one an Olympic-level event in understatement. "My, what a lovely home. You're too kind. It's just a little something we do. Is that a new rug? I remember when I had the energy for redecorating." The conversation is a delicate ballet. Nothing truly important may be discussed. The weather, children's minor achievements, and new casserole recipes are safe ground. Anything that hints at actual emotion or trouble, marriage woes, existential dread, the urge to throw all the laundry into the yard and move to Cuba, must be concealed behind comments about rising grocery prices or the tragic state of next door's hydrangeas. If you slip and say something real, the silence will be so sharp it could cut a linoleum tile. Coffee is poured with the ceremonial gravity of a sacred rite. The host always serves others first, offering sugar, cream, or, if you really want to stir the pot, one of those newfangled artificial sweeteners that everyone suspects might cause either cancer or communism. Decaf is regarded with polite suspicion. The only reason to serve instant coffee is as a warning to your enemies. As the morning progresses, compliments and criticisms swirl together like cream in the cup. Someone will inevitably remark on how lovely your curtains look despite the sunlight fading, or comment on how well your youngest is doing for his age. There are subtle jabs at anyone who switched brands of flour, and competitive sighing over the price of beef. Everyone agrees that being a housewife is exhausting, but not in any way that suggests anyone would actually stop. By 11:30, it's time for the grand exit. Gloves reappear, handbags are reclaimed, and promises to do this again very soon are issued with the solemnity of an international treaty. As the last car disappears down the street, you breathe a sigh of relief, survey the crumbs, and contemplate moving somewhere they don't have coffee mornings at all. You survive the unwritten laws for one more week. Just don't get caught with store-bought cookies in your trash, or you'll be the next cautionary tale. Tupperware isn't just for leftovers. It's a test of your loyalty to both modern convenience and the woman selling it to you. Don't buy enough, and you're a traitor to progress. Buy too much, and your husband will wonder if you're planning to store a family of raccoons. The only thing more complicated than the airtight seal is figuring out how to leave the party without committing a felony of rudeness. Let's set the stage. It's 7 p.m., and you arrive at Janet's house, armed with a nervous smile and a vague dread that by the end of the evening you'll have purchased a lifetime supply of plastic that will outlive the pyramids. The living room has been transformed into a battlefield of pastels and practicality. The coffee table groans under the weight of Tupperware, in every color of the mid-century rainbow, avocado, blush pink, and a shade of orange not found in nature. Your hostess is radiant, eyes gleaming with the zeal of a new convert, and the barely restrained terror of a woman who's already promised her upline that she'll move 50 sets by next Thursday. She's rehearsed every feature and benefit, and the next hour will feel less like a sales pitch and more like a tent revival for airtight storage. The party itself unfolds according to a mysterious choreography known only to those who have survived it before. First, you're offered a drink, a highball or a sherbet punch, served, naturally, in a Tupperware cup. You accept it, knowing the entire event is a test. Will you remark on the cup's durability and modern design, or will you make the fatal error of asking why it smells faintly of last week's chili. Next comes the demonstration. This is not just a product pitch, it's performance art. Your hostess pings the burp seal lid, releasing a satisfying pop that's meant to symbolize both freshness and progress. There is a demonstration involving lettuce, a solemn ritual meant to prove that with Tupperware, even a salad can survive the atomic age. Someone gasps as a container is dropped on the floor, only to emerge unscathed. The lettuce inside as crisp as corporate ambition. Then, the testimonials. Each woman takes her turn praising the Tupperware she already owns. I kept a pineapple slice fresh for 3 weeks. My casserole never dries out. It stacks so beautifully, my husband actually noticed. The praise is only slightly less effusive than what you'd hear at a royal wedding. But now, the real challenge. Ordering. Buy too little, and you risk being marked as a Luddite who rejects progress and, by extension, friendship with Janet. Buy too much, and you'll spend the rest of the month explaining to your spouse why you needed a container exclusively for hard-boiled eggs. The etiquette here is as precise as nuclear disarmament. You must choose enough to appear supportive, but not so much that your kitchen morphs into a Tupperware storage facility worthy of a minor museum. And let's not forget the games. Every party has them. Tupperware bingo, mystery, container guessing, or who can stack lids the fastest. These games serve as both icebreakers and subtle reminders that the only thing standing between you and Tupperware-induced bliss is a lack of imagination, and possibly your budget. Conversation at these gatherings is a careful blend of competitive homemaking and friendly sabotage. Oh, you're still using wax paper? Well, I suppose that's fine if you like stale cookies. Or, we switched out all our glass jars. Haven't broken a thing since. You nod and smile, praying no one asks about the chaos in your own pantry, where a single wayward lid has been lost since Eisenhower took office. As the evening winds down, you're offered leftovers, meticulously packed in, you guessed it, Tupperware. You accept, knowing that to refuse would be the ultimate insult. And then, the final hurdle, leaving. You can't just grab your purse and bolt. You must linger, compliment the host, and sign the order form with a flourish that says, "I am both modern and thrifty. Please let me go home." So you survive, plasticware in tow, already planning your own party to offload the 6-piece citrus set you accidentally bought in a moment of panic. In the world of 1950s suburbia, Tupperware parties aren't just social events. They're a rite of passage, a secret handshake, and the unbreakable seal on neighborhood belonging. There's no metric for stress like the anxiety of realizing your skirt hem is a full half-inch longer than the accepted norm. Should you risk scandal or run for your sewing kit? Local housewives can measure to the millimeter with their eyes. In the 1950s, a wandering hemline isn't just a fashion faux pas. It's an invitation for unsolicited advice from every woman over 40 within a 5-mile radius. You start your day innocently enough, slipping into a skirt you're pretty sure passed inspection last week. But then, disaster strikes. A glance in the hallway mirror reveals that, overnight, hemlines have somehow crept upward. What was once chic is now dangerously matronly. Your heart skips a beat. Do you risk it? Is it worth the judgment? Or do you make a mad dash for your emergency sewing kit, praying you can shorten the skirt before the school bus rounds the corner? In 1950s suburbia, skirt length is less about personal taste and more about surviving a public referendum. There is no Geneva Convention for fashion, but there is Mrs. Caldwell across the street, who has the uncanny ability to spot an errant hem at 50 paces while watering her roses. The unwritten rule: the skirt must fall exactly below the knee, no more, no less. If it's too long, you risk looking like you're hiding spare bread loaves from the war. too short, and you'll be fielding whispers about your moral fiber until Labor Day. The anxiety isn't limited to your own wardrobe. At PTA meetings in the grocery store or on the church steps, you're constantly scanning other women's skirts, quietly comparing, doing mental calculations, and hoping you've landed in the safe zone. Everyone is both judge and contestant in this silent fashion game. You remember last month's scandal? Helen's daughter showed up to the soda shop in a skirt 2 inches above the knee. And for a week, the only thing more talked about was the price of beef. The worst part? Hems are tricky, little traitors. You kneel to pick up a dropped spoon, and suddenly your skirt has ridden up, exposing a flash of knee that could send Mrs. Murphy into a faint. Or worse, the dreaded sitting test. You can spend all morning checking your skirt in the mirror, but the second you sit, it contracts to reveal thighs you didn't even know you had. The only defense is to perfect the art of perching on the very edge of every seat. Upright, ankles crossed, ready to spring up if someone with a tape measure approaches. Sometimes, fashion magazines offer advice. Raise your hemline for a youthful silhouette, but they never mention the real danger. A well-meaning neighbor with a sewing machine determined to help you update your wardrobe. You may receive a casserole and a thinly veiled suggestion that she could just take it in a smidge, dear, for the new season. Refuse her, and you risk war. Accept, and your skirt will be 1/2 centimeter shorter every time she visits. Of course, some rebels try to game the system. The secret hem trick, rolling up your waistband once inside the car, or sneaking a length of tape to hold things in place. But be warned, this is a dangerous game, one that's been known to end in public humiliation and frantic adjustments in the powder room. For most, the best approach is simple. Keep a needle and thread in your purse, and an eye on the local fashion barometer at all times. All this just for the privilege of walking down the street without incident. If it sounds exhausting, that's because it is. Modern life offers a freedom unimagined in the age of the militant hemline. Today, you could wear pajama pants to the store and get a compliment, but in the 1950s, a skirt was a statement, and a hem was the line between social acceptance and exile. So the next time you wonder why your grandmother has strong opinions about appropriate attire, remember, she fought in the battle of the hemlines, armed only with a thimble, a measuring tape, and nerves of steel. And she survived, most days, with her dignity and her seams intact. No 1950s dinner party is complete without at least one dish encasing 3 incompatible food groups in lime gelatin. Etiquette demands you pretend to enjoy it, or at least avoid making a face that will haunt your reputation for the next decade. Pro tip: always ask what's in the salad before chewing. Let's paint the scene. The doorbell rings at 6 sharp, signaling the start of an evening where casseroles and conversation will both be tested for palatability. The table is a rainbow of mid-century optimism: avocado green plates, pink napkins, and, in pride of place, the shimmering, wobbly centerpiece, the Jell-o salad. It glistens under the chandelier with a promise that is equal parts hope and threat. Somewhere inside, a ring of canned pineapple, shredded carrot, and tiny marshmallows float in uneasy truce. If you stare long enough, you might see bits of tuna suspended like prehistoric flies in amber. Serving Jell-o isn't just hospitality, it's a rite of passage, an edible Rorschach test for both cook and guest. As the hostess, your goal is clear: present a dish so visually stunning, or at least so structurally sound, that nobody will question its ingredients until it's far too late. There are rules. Citrus slices must be evenly spaced, suspended at perfect intervals. Nothing sinks, and nothing floats, except, perhaps, your dignity. Your guests, meanwhile, engage in the time-honored ritual of pretending not to be terrified. The hostess beams with pride as she describes the recipe. It's mother's favorite: lime Jell-o, cottage cheese, celery, and just a hint of seafood for extra protein. Guests nod approvingly, already plotting their escape routes. One brave soul spears a slice, eyeing it as if it might leap off the plate and make a run for the window. Another, cornered, simply smiles and makes polite conversation, determined to chew through whatever lies inside without blinking. If you're attending, the stakes are high. Making a face is social suicide. Refusing a serving will be discussed for years. Your only hope is tactical strategy. Take the smallest possible slice, push it to the edge of your plate, and talk animatedly about local school policies until everyone else has finished theirs. If cornered by the hostess, compliment the color, such a lovely green. Or the resilience of the mold. How does it hold its shape so well? But never, under any circumstances, ask about the flavor. There are escape artists in every suburb, housewives who have mastered the art of accidentally dropping their Jell-o on the carpet, or of hiding forkfuls under their napkin. Children are the most honest critics, often recoiling in horror at the first spoonful. But the rest of us must soldier on, chewing bravely through every gelatinous bite, silently wondering who first looked at a package of lime Jell-o and thought, "You know what this needs? Tuna." Modern comparison? Imagine if, at every holiday gathering, it was considered polite to serve a dish combining hot dogs, pudding, and kale, and everyone just rolled with it. That's the 1950s Jell-o salad. No questions, no refusals. Just the unspoken agreement that this, too, is part of civilization's progress. Of course, sometimes the Jell-o is actually delicious. Classic strawberry with fruit cocktail, or orange with mandarin slices. But there's always the danger lurking beneath the quivering surface. The boldest hostesses of the era prided themselves on innovation. I call it tuna, mold à la mode, they'll say, as guests quietly plan their wills. If you manage to choke it down, you've earned your place in polite society for another season. If not, you'll be the subject of cautionary tales at bridge club. So, next time you spot a suspiciously vibrant salad at a gathering, channel your inner 1950s housewife. Keep your face neutral, your compliments vague, and your napkin strategically placed. Because in the world of gelatin-based etiquette, survival isn't about liking the Jell-o, it's about pretending you did, and living to tell the tale, preferably at a dinner party with less adventurous salads. Want to impress the neighbors? Don't send them home with food poisoning. From deviled eggs left out all afternoon to the questionable casserole your great-aunt left on the porch, every meal is a delicate balancing act between hospitality and biological warfare. If no one gets botulism, you've succeeded. Let's set the dinner table. It's Friday night, and the air is thick with anticipation and the smell of chicken a la king. You've spent the whole day cleaning, baking, and praying the oven doesn't go on strike. The table is set, the centerpiece is twinkling, and the buffet is groaning under the weight of every recipe you could find in Better Homes and Gardens. On the surface, everything is perfect, a domestic tableau fit for a magazine cover. But underneath? It's a minefield of pathogens lurking in mayonnaise, slow-cooked meats, and every refrigerated item that was left out just a little too long. Food safety in the 1950s is a high-wire act. There are rules, of course, but they're written in a language of vague optimism. Serve cold dishes well chilled. But what exactly does well chilled mean in a house where the icebox is as old as the marriage? You know that deviled eggs should be cold, but after 3 hours on the sideboard, they've developed a glossy sheen that can only be described as suspicious. You do what any good hostess would do. Give them a quick sniff and hope for the best. If you're really worried, You strategically place them closest to the guest you like the least. Now, let's talk casseroles. The casserole is both the pride of the 1950s kitchen and the leading suspect in most culinary crimes. Made in the early afternoon, set on the windowsill to cool, and then promptly forgotten until dinner, it's a dish that walks the fine line between tradition and salmonella. The topping should be golden, the insides bubbling. But if it jiggles, it's not the Jell-o. It's time to panic. Don't even start on potato salad. This innocent-seeming side dish is a staple of every gathering, and also the reason many children grew up afraid of picnics. In the 1950s, potato salad is made with copious amounts of mayonnaise and left out in the sun, surrounded by hopeful flies and cautious relatives. The rule of thumb: if it's still cold, eat fast. If it's warm, start making excuses about your delicate digestion. And then there's the mystery meat. Every gathering has one. A loaf, a roast, or a ring-shaped creation that nobody can quite identify. It's glazed, it's shiny, and it's been sitting out just long enough for you to question your life choices. Your job as hostess is to serve with confidence and a side of plausible deniability. Oh, that? It's an old family recipe. If someone asks what's in it, you change the subject to local weather patterns or the latest Tupperware innovation. Your kitchen arsenal includes exactly two weapons against disaster: Saran wrap and the icebox. Saran wrap, freshly invented and wielded with pride, is stretched over every bowl and tray in the hope it will stop both germs and gossip. The icebox hums heroically, battling valiantly to keep your ambrosia salad just above freezing. But you know it's really just slowing down the inevitable. The end of the meal is the most suspenseful part. You watch your guests carefully. Does anyone look a little too pale? Is Mr. Jenkins sweating? Or is that just the heat from the scalloped potatoes? No one wants to be responsible for the incident that will be whispered about for years. You hand out leftovers with a silent prayer and a subtle warning: just be sure to refrigerate that as soon as you get home. So yes, you've succeeded if your guests depart upright, smiling, and free from the symptoms of mild food poisoning. In the 1950s, that's hospitality at its finest. As you clear the table, you can rest easy knowing you've hosted not just a meal, but a successful, if mildly hazardous, test of friendship and intestinal fortitude. In the 1950s, the etiquette rules for children are more complex than tax law. They must never interrupt, never speak unless spoken to, and certainly never express a genuine opinion. Training them is your responsibility, and any lapse is evidence that you are, in fact, a communist. Let's imagine the scene. It's Sunday afternoon, the house is echoing with the sound of polite conversation, and you're desperately hoping your children remember their roles in this domestic theatre. Each child is scrubbed to a suspicious shine, hair combed flat, collars straightened within an inch of their lives. They sit, hands folded, with an expression best described as mildly terrified with a hint of constipation. In the 1950s, a child's primary function is to be seen, not heard. Unless, of course, a guest asks a direct question. In that case, the answer must be delivered clearly, cheerfully, and with the kind of humility that suggests you have no ambitions beyond cleaning your room and attending Sunday school. The rulebook for child etiquette in this era would fill an encyclopedia. Do not run in the house, do not climb the furniture, and certainly do not make animal noises in front of the pastor. Questions are answered in complete sentences, napkins are placed in laps, and food is chewed with the decorum of a Buckingham Palace luncheon. If a child utters anything resembling an actual opinion, "I don't like meatloaf," or "Why does Mr. Johnson smell like mothballs?" the room falls silent, the air grows cold, and you, the mother, are left to apologize as if your child has just denounced capitalism on live radio. Discipline is both subtle and relentless. There are the looks, a series of glares and eyebrow raises, each finely calibrated to communicate everything from stop kicking your sister to if you spill that milk, you're sleeping outside. Sometimes, the promise of dessert is dangled as a behavioral incentive. Other times, you resort to the nuclear option, threatening to tell their father when he gets home. And yet, children are not merely passive observers. They are little spies, always watching, always learning. At the dinner table, they absorb every rule, every awkward silence, every strategic topic change. Later, these lessons are repeated with terrifying accuracy during playdates, when your 5-year-old delivers a stinging verdict on the Johnson's curtains or informs the neighbor that mommy says your Jell-o is creative. Of course, the stakes are high. A single slip, a tantrum at the store, a loud burp during bridge club, a moment of unscripted honesty, and you'll be the talk of the neighborhood. Did you hear what happened at Margaret's house? Her son asked for ketchup at dinner. Ketchup? With pot roast, you'll be reminded, through a series of gentle but persistent stories, about the old days, when children knew their place and mothers used soap for more than just hands. Modern comparison? Imagine trying to raise a group of tiny, unpredictable diplomats who must maintain flawless manners at all times, despite the fact that their natural state is chaos. And yet, any parenting misstep is seen not just as a lapse in discipline, but as a moral failing, an early sign that your household is on the road to ruin, jazz music, and unregulated snack times. Yet beneath all the stress, something endures. The children do, eventually, learn the rules. They develop a talent for small talk and a sixth sense for reading a room. They become experts at folding napkins, balancing teacups, and offering vague compliments about rhubarb pie. Sure, they may stage a small rebellion by eating paste in art class or hiding under the bed during Aunt Edna's visits. But for the most part, they grow up to be just as anxious and socially attuned as their parents hoped. So next time you see an old photograph of smiling, perfectly behaved children lined up like ducklings, remember the unspoken truth. They are watching, they are judging, and somewhere they're quietly plotting their next great etiquette escape. In the 1950s, manners are everything, and the smallest critic in the room is always your own child. Answering the phone isn't just communication, it's performance art. Your greeting must be crisp, your tone cheerful, and under no circumstances may you admit you're in the bath, or, heaven forbid, sitting down. And if it's a wrong number, you must apologize as if you've personally caused the fall of civilization. Let's step into the hallway, where the family phone sits on a tiny table, often next to a pad of paper reserved exclusively for important messages and complicated doodles. The phone itself is a rotary masterpiece, heavy, reassuringly solid, and a color that can best be described as harvest wheat or government issue beige. The shrill ring slices through the house like a starter pistol. There are no ringtones, no vibrate mode, no way to silence the fact that someone, somewhere, urgently wishes to speak to you. You don't dawdle. Running for the phone is expected. If you let it ring more than 3 times, the entire household is on edge. What if it's an emergency? What if it's Mrs. Flanders with the latest church gossip? What if it's the milkman, phoning to say he's stuck in your driveway again? Each ring raises the stakes. By the time you pick up, your heart is pounding and you've already forgotten your own name. But you cannot let that show. Lifting the receiver, you take a deep, calming breath and deliver your greeting. Never just hello, but good morning, Tyson residents, Ray speaking. with the kind of crispness that suggests you have been waiting by the phone for hours, engaged in nothing more taxing than alphabetizing your recipe cards. If you are breathless, you must disguise it. If you were mid-vacuum or elbow-deep in bread dough, you can never admit it. The illusion must be preserved. You are always poised, always ready, and above all, never caught off guard. Under no circumstances should the caller suspect you were lying on the sofa, eating crackers and reading a magazine. The reputation of the entire household hangs in the balance. Now, the worst-case scenario, a wrong number. In the 1950s, this is a grave event. The caller stammers, "Oh, I'm sorry, I must have dialed wrong." And suddenly, you're both engaged in a duet of excessive politeness. "Oh, no trouble at all," you say, as if forgiving them for an international incident. "I hope you find who you're looking for. If you're really committed," you offer helpful suggestions. "Are you sure you dialed main 47092? All of this is performed in your sunniest, most accommodating voice. You hang up and exhale, hoping you haven't accidentally insulted anyone, because a reputation for rudeness on the telephone is social death. It will be whispered at bridge club that she snaps at callers or doesn't sound cheerful, and suddenly your invitations to coffee mornings dwindle. Of course, the telephone is not a private affair. Every conversation is public, at least within the confines of the house. Children are shushed, radios are turned down, and the dog is banished to the backyard. Your end of the conversation is performed for an audience, your spouse, your children, maybe the neighbor peering through the window, because she knows exactly when you get phone calls and from whom. If the call is for someone else, transferring it is a delicate relay race. "One moment, please," you say, rushing off to find the intended party. If you take too long, you must apologize twice. Once to the caller, and again to the place, recipient for making them wait. Heaven help you if you lose the connection, or worse, accidentally hang up. It's a family scandal, suitable for retelling at Thanksgiving. Compare this to today, when answering the phone is a surprise, often met with suspicion or even dread. Back then, it was both responsibility and ritual, and heaven forbid anyone answer with a curt, "Yeah?" You'd have to move. So next time you see a rotary phone at an antique store, pause for a moment. Remember a time when every call was a test of manners, every wrong number, a chance for grace, and every greeting, a tiny, perfectly performed act on the grand stage of suburban etiquette. There's no panic, quite like the sight of a neighbor's car pulling up unexpectedly. Are your shoes on? Is your house clean enough? Are you wearing actual clothes? If not, you have approximately 7 seconds to achieve presentability or die trying. It's 2 in the afternoon, the quiet hour when the house is finally yours. You're deep in the trance of sorting laundry, contemplating whether socks actually need to be paired, or perhaps halfway through a well-earned cup of coffee and a chapter of the latest Reader's Digest. Suddenly, from the window, you spot it. The glint of chrome, the familiar pastel paint, the telltale judder of Mrs. Allen's station wagon. She's slowing to a stop right outside your driveway. She's not alone. Her daughter and a mysterious pie-shaped bundle are in the back seat. The blood drains from your face. It's too late to run. You've been spotted. Time dilates. You now have, by your calculations, less than 10 seconds before she's at your door. You spring into action, a model of barely controlled chaos. Shoes. Where are your shoes? Why are they never where you left them? You consider answering barefoot, but remember last week's scandal about Mrs. Patterson's bohemian lifestyle, and how it all started with her answering the door in slippers. Next is the living room. You sprint past the sofa, snatching up rogue magazines and a sock of unknown origin. The coffee table is littered with children's crayons and last night's popcorn. You swipe it all into a drawer, praying it doesn't explode when you open it next. The vacuum cleaner stands proudly in the corner, a subtle hint you are always cleaning, not just moments before company arrives. You flip it on for effect, letting the gentle hum signal that order reigns here, at least for these 5 minutes. Then there's the question of your own appearance. Are you still wearing your laundry uniform, also known as yesterday's housecoat with suspicious jam stains? Panic. You throw on a fresh apron and a dash of lipstick. Nothing says domestic competence like lipstick hastily applied in the hallway mirror. You quickly run a hand through your hair, smooth your skirt, and attempt to look serene, as if you've spent the whole afternoon planning for this social ambush. By now, the doorbell is ringing. You take a deep breath, plaster on your best, delighted to see you smile, and open the door with a greeting that attempts to sound casual, not breathless. "Oh, what a wonderful surprise," you declare, hoping your voice doesn't betray the terror still lurking just beneath the surface. Mrs. Allen steps inside, eyes scanning the room like a drill sergeant. You pray she won't notice the sock peeking out from under the sofa or the faint aroma of burned toast still lingering from breakfast. Her daughter stands in the doorway, clutching the mystery pie, possibly as a test of your hospitality or your ability to produce clean forks on short notice. Conversation is a blur. You offer coffee, even if the pot is empty and the only available mugs are chipped or, worse, mismatched. You recite a silent prayer that the good sugar bowl isn't still in the dishwasher, and desperately hope that nobody asks to use the bathroom, which you haven't checked since last Tuesday. As Mrs. Allen chats about the upcoming bake sale, you nod enthusiastically, all the while calculating how long it will take her to notice you haven't dusted the top of the TV. Every minute feels like a test of your home, your children, hopefully unseen, possibly hiding in the linen closet, your ability to maintain the illusion that everything is always under control. Finally, with a flurry of polite goodbyes, the visit ends. You close the door and collapse in relief. You survived the unholy terror of the unannounced visitor, a suburban rite of passage, an adrenaline sport, and proof that sometimes being a 1950s housewife is less about etiquette and more about surviving the gauntlet with your dignity and lipstick mostly intact. Drying laundry outside is a science. Sheets must billow artistically, underwear must be hidden behind towels, and socks are to be paired with military precision. Woe betide the housewife whose unmentionables are visible to the mailman. Picture the scene. It's a breezy Wednesday, and the suburban backyards are alive with the subtle competition of laundry day. Across the fence, you can hear the rhythmic snap of wooden clothespins, the gentle flapping of cotton, and the distant murmur of neighbors trading the latest gossip. In the world of the 1950s, the clothesline is more than just a string of rope. It's a stage where your domestic prowess is on public display. Forget Instagram. This is your real feed. Before a single sock is hoisted skyward, you must assess the audience. Mrs. Parker is trimming her rose bushes, eyeing your technique over the fence. The mailman, punctual as the sunrise, is making his rounds, ready to pass silent judgment. The children from next door are watching, waiting for a strong wind to carry someone's bloomers into a tree. The stakes are high, and the rules are unwritten but ironclad. First, the sheets. They go up front, center stage, and must hang perfectly straight. Not a wrinkle in sight. The art of the crisp sheet is real. If your linens billow elegantly in the breeze, it's assumed you are a woman of taste and order. If they sag or droop, whispers begin. Did you skip the starch? Are you losing your touch? There's nothing like the humiliation of a limp sheet to put a damper on your morning confidence. Underwear is next. the unmentionables, the scandalous secret of every household. The primary rule: concealment. Under no circumstances can these be hung in the open. Brassieres must be shielded behind pillowcases, or at the very least, camouflaged by a double row of towels. If a pair of bloomers is ever seen by the mailman, expect polite avoidance and possibly a church prayer circle by the end of the week. The safest approach? Early morning hanging while the world is still half asleep. Socks are another battlefield. In the 1950s, socks are not simply tossed over the line. They are hung in matching pairs, toes pointing east, heels facing west, evenly spaced and at equal height. Any deviation suggests a dangerous disregard for order, or worse, a disregard for laundry as a noble calling. If you're short a sock, heaven help you. Single socks fluttering on a line are a sign of chaos, the kind that makes Mrs. Parker sigh and make a note for her next phone call with your mother-in-law. Then, there are towels and handkerchiefs. These are the utility players. Use them to fill gaps, shield underwear, and create the illusion of abundance. Your line should have just enough variety to suggest a healthy, active family, but not so much that it looks like you've been laundering for the whole block. Let's not forget the weather. Drying laundry is a race against time and rain clouds. You've learned to interpret the sky with the desperation of a meteorologist during hurricane season. Rain at the wrong moment means you'll be running barefoot across the yard, flinging yourself at the line to rescue what you can, all while praying no one is watching from the kitchen window. The whole performance must be repeated weekly, if not more. A flawless clothesline is social currency. It's how you let the neighborhood know you are on top of things, even when everything else, children, casseroles, the family budget, is dangerously close to unraveling. So next time you see a line of crisp sheets waving in the sun, remember the invisible code behind it. The 1950s clothesline is both art and anxiety, a symphony of cotton, order, and quiet judgment. One misstep, and you're the talk of the block. One perfect line, and you're the queen of suburban order, at least until the wind changes. Keeping up appearances is less about personal joy and more about waging an endless, passive-aggressive war with your neighbors. The lawn must be trimmed, the roses dead-headed, and heaven help you if your dandelions cross the property line. In 1950s suburbia, the grass is not just greener on the other side. It's a personal affront to your very existence. The first rule of the block: you are always being watched. Mrs. Jensen, 3 doors down, peers through her lace curtains with binoculars normally reserved for birdwatching. Mr. Tompkins just happens to stroll by at sunrise, hands clasped behind his back, tallying which lawns were mowed last week and which are flirting with unruliness. Your own day begins with reconnaissance. A cup of coffee in one hand, you scan the block. The enemy, neighbors, are already out, squinting at their flower beds, wielding trowels like swords. The air smells of freshly cut grass and competitive anxiety. You spot a single dandelion rearing its sunny head at the edge of your walkway and feel a chill run down your spine. You snatch it up with the same urgency as disarming a ticking bomb. One dandelion can become 20, and soon you'll be living in the botanical version of a cautionary tale. The unwritten etiquette of lawn care is as complex as chess, but with more sweating. The grass must be short, but not so short it looks desperate. You mow once a week, but not on the same day as the Johnsons, lest it appear you are copying their schedule. The clippings must be raked immediately. Leaving them out signals sloth and invites comment. If you use fertilizer, it must be the subtle kind. No chemical scents, no neon green patches that glow in the dark. Composting is noble, but only if you keep it hidden from public view. The flower beds are another battlefield. Roses are dead-headed daily. Tulips must stand at attention, and marigolds should never, under any circumstances, sprawl. If your peonies collapse under their own ambition, you support them with stakes and a hopeful prayer. If the hydrangeas droop, you discuss the weather at length to excuse their malaise. All the while, Mrs. Jensen takes notes for her next call to your mother-in-law. Front porch decor is subtly weaponized. A well-placed wreath says, "I have it together." A chipped flower pot is a declaration of surrender. Lawn ornaments are a minefield. 1 pink flamingo is charming, 2 is tacky, 3 means you've given up and might as well park an old car on the grass. Wind chimes are acceptable if they tinkle gently. Anything louder is an act of war. The greatest challenge is the silent arms race of lawn care equipment. The day Mr. Tompkins rolls out his brand new push mower with gleaming chrome details, a ripple goes through the neighborhood. By dinner, every hardware store within 10 miles is sold out of upgrades. You convince your spouse that the old mower just isn't safe anymore, and, before you know it, you're in possession of a model so advanced it might actually be able to mow, edge, and deliver a subtle put-down about the Wilson's crabgrass. And then there's watering. The proper schedule is a guarded secret. Too much, and your lawn is lush but suspicious. Too little, and your grass crunches ominously underfoot. The trick is to water just enough that the green envy radiates across property lines, but not so much that your water bill makes headlines at the next bridge night. In the end, nobody wins this war. You collapse indoors, fingers stained with grass, wondering if it's worth the effort. But tomorrow, you'll wake up, peer through the curtains, and notice Mrs. Jensen's begonias looking suspiciously perky. And so it begins again. The never-ending contest to see whose yard, and by extension, whose life, is most perfectly manicured. Because in 1950s suburbia, the real growth isn't in the gardens. It's in the quiet, relentless competition that keeps you trimming, weeding, and pretending to care, all for a piece that depends on never letting your dandelions show. Grocery shopping is less about getting food and more about navigating an obstacle course of acquaintances, rivals, and the store manager who definitely judges your margarine choices. Etiquette demands that you smile, nod, and never, ever buy more than 2 cans of Spam at once. It's Tuesday morning, and you're armed with a starched shopping list, a sensible handbag, and a burning desire not to bump into Mrs. Johnson before you've done your hair. You step into the fluorescent glow of the local market and immediately sense the tension in the air. Every woman is here for the same reason you are: to be seen, and to pretend she's not worried about being seen. The first challenge is the produce section. Bananas are inspected for optimal ripeness. Apples are tested for firmness. And the citrus must be rotated and sniffed as if you're auditioning for a part in a citrus-themed detective show. Etiquette says you never squeeze more than 3 avocados or take the last of anything. Reach for the final bunch of parsley, and you risk an icy glare from Mrs. Jenkins, who, as everyone knows, claims she makes the best chicken salad in town. Next, you enter the maze of the canned goods aisle, where alliances are made and broken. Here, you must perform a delicate balancing act between thrift and dignity. It's perfectly acceptable to buy generic peas, but heaven help you if you're spotted with off-brand tomato soup. Canned tuna is safe, but anything resembling creamed chipped beef is to be purchased only in disguise, preferably hidden beneath a stack of respectable canned fruit. As you maneuver your cart, the odds of a chance encounter skyrocket. There's always someone to chat with: an acquaintance from the PTA, a neighbor who wants to discuss the tragic state of the local playground, or the store manager who hovers at the end of every aisle. ready to pass judgment on your selections. You nod politely, all while mentally rehearsing your cover story for why you're buying so many crackers. Hosting bridge night again? Or that extra jar of maraschino cherries? Special occasion, I swear. Frozen foods offer both relief and new risks. Lean in for the peas, and you may find yourself trapped in a 10-minute conversation about the best method for reheating leftovers. The real test comes at the meat counter, where the butcher acts as both supplier and social gatekeeper. You must choose your cut with care. Not so expensive you seem extravagant. Not so humble you appear frugal. If you're unlucky, you'll run into Mrs. Parker, who will examine your choices and ask pointedly, "Roast again, dear?" as if suggesting you're running a small boarding house for carnivores. The dairy aisle is a gauntlet of etiquette in its purest form. Whole milk says traditional values. Skim milk says keeping up with the times. Margarine is a gamble. Butter, a bold flex. Never be seen with both, or people will wonder what kind of household you're running. Don't even mention if you buy powdered milk. You'll be suspected of either culinary genius or unspeakable thrift. The final trial, the checkout line. You stack your items with the labels facing out, hoping to project the image of a woman who has it all together. You smile at the cashier, chat about the weather, and, above all, ignore the burning sensation of Mrs. Jensen's eyes cataloguing every can, box, and bag in your cart. As you leave, bags in hand, you replay every encounter in your mind. Did you smile enough? Did you buy too many convenience foods? Did Mrs. Jenkins see the boxed cake mix? You breathe a sigh of relief as you return to your car. Victorious. For now. Because in 1950s suburbia, grocery shopping isn't just about sustenance. It's an Olympic event, a ritual of etiquette and quiet rivalry, where every aisle is another chance to prove you belong. Ironing isn't a chore, it's a lifestyle. Every garment, napkin, and pillowcase must be pressed to an unattainable crispness, and you must enjoy it. Or at least look like you do, because admitting defeat is how the wrinkles win. Let's start with the weapons of the trade. In the 1950s, the iron isn't some lightweight, steam-powered gadget with adjustable settings and a Teflon-coated sole. No, it's a heavy, chrome-plated behemoth that doubles as both a muscle-building device and a blunt object for self-defense against anyone suggesting that wrinkle-resistant fabrics will ever catch on. The ironing board creaks ominously as you unfold it, the cover dotted with faded scorch marks, each a scar from past battles. The routine is ritualistic. Shirts are stacked by color and social importance. Husband's work, shirts first, must impress the boss. School uniforms next, must avoid a call from Mrs. Parker, followed by your own blouses, which, ironically, you'll spend all day ironing only to put on an apron the minute anyone comes to the door. Then come the napkins, handkerchiefs, and, on ambitious days, the top sheet, because God forbid a guest glimpses a single crease through the coverlet. You fill the iron with water, plug it in, and wait for that comforting hiss of steam, the sound that says you're in control, at least for the next 45 minutes. The house fills with the nostalgic aroma of scorched cotton and faint desperation. You press each shirt with the precision of a military parade. Collar first, then sleeves, then the body. Every movement is part of a dance. Lift, smooth, glide, press, repeat. Any distraction, a phone call, a child in distress, a sudden breeze, could spell disaster in the form of a permanent wrinkle, a mark that may never come out, and a fresh entry in the local book of domestic gossip. In this era, wrinkles aren't just a sign of laziness. They're a sign that civilization is on the verge of collapse. There's always the threat of a surprise inspection, your mother-in-law dropping by, a neighbor popping in, or, worst of all, the visiting pastor needing a clean napkin. Any evidence of a skipped ironing session is an open invitation for subtle advice. Oh dear, have you tried a bit more starch? Or perhaps a hotter iron? These comments sting, but worse is the implication that you are losing your grip on the holy order of suburbia. Let's talk about the napkins. Cloth napkins are mandatory for anyone aspiring to middle-class respectability, and they must be ironed within an inch of their lives. Each corner must be perfectly square, each fold crisp enough to cut butter. Paper napkins, while available, are strictly reserved for picnics, emergencies, or households with questionable morals. Even the act of hanging the clothes after ironing is choreographed. You drape shirts with military precision on hangers, careful not to wrinkle them in the transfer. A poorly hung shirt can undo 30 minutes of labor, and the heartbreak is real. Of course, modern life offers shortcuts, wrinkle release sprays, permanent press fabrics, dryers with special settings, but in the 1950s, you're locked in a never-ending war with rumples, puckers, and mysterious post-laundry creases. Your only allies, elbow grease and the fantasy that somewhere there's a woman who actually enjoys ironing. Ironing isn't just a domestic duty, it's a public performance. You must press on, literally and figuratively, smiling as you wage the daily battle against entropy. Because deep down, everyone knows the truth. The moment you let your guard down, the wrinkles win, and the entire fragile order of suburbia might come undone, one creased pillowcase at a time. Hosting a dinner party requires skills worthy of a hostage negotiator. Your jokes must be harmless, your laughter polite, and your casserole unburnt. If the conversation lags, switch to discussing bridge or the weather. Anything more interesting is simply not done. Picture it. It's Saturday night, and you're in full battle dress, crisp dress, pearls, and an apron that might as well be a coat of armor. The table gleams with polished silverware and the good china, each place setting positioned with geometric precision. Candles flicker with a sort of desperate optimism, promising an evening of sophistication and not, for the love of all that is holy, a repeat of last month's ham incident. The doorbell rings and the parade begins. Guests arrive in carefully coordinated outfits, bearing bottles of wine and the slightly forced enthusiasm of people who would, in a more honest world, be at home in pajamas. You greet everyone with the same brightness you reserve for a tax refund or a child's nap. Shoes are discreetly swapped at the door for house slippers. Nobody wants scuff marks. And small talk commences before the roast is even in the oven. The choreography of the evening is strict. Cocktails in the living room, don't spill on the rug. Hors d'oeuvres on tiny plates. Polite laughter at Mr. Bennett's joke about car troubles. Every guest has a role to play. There's the neighbor who brings up last winter's snowstorm for the 8th time, the friend who just got back from Europe, and the husband who tells the same story about the office Christmas party at every event since 1953. Your job is to keep the conversational plates spinning, nodding in agreement, and sending silent SOS signals with your eyes. The meal itself is an exercise in both culinary skill and emotional restraint. Casseroles are presented with fanfare. Side dishes are explained as if unveiling national secrets. If something goes wrong, a burnt crust, a collapsed soufflé, you must smile serenely and say, "Well, it's all about the company, isn't it?" As if you've never heard of embarrassment. Fake laughter bubbles up at every opportunity, greased by the second glass of Chablis and the knowledge that this too shall pass. At the heart of the dinner party is the art of polite, meaningless conversation. Safe topics are rotated with the regularity of the seasons. Weather, school news, bridge scores, the rising cost of produce, politics, religion, and anything resembling an actual emotion are left at the door with the muddy galoshes. If someone dares stray into interesting territory, perhaps a neighbor's recent divorce, or the suspicious new car in the driveway, you must gently guide the discussion back to safer ground. Yes, but have you tried the green beans? I used a dash of nutmeg. There is, of course, the ever-present threat of silence. A lull in conversation can last mere seconds, but feels like an eternity. You have emergency anecdotes on standby, a funny thing the milkman said, or that time little Bobby put his shoes in the freezer. If all else fails, compliment someone's new curtains. If their curtains aren't new, compliment their old ones. The point is to keep the conversational engine running, no matter how thin the fuel. Throughout the evening, laughter is distributed in careful doses. Not too loud, unseemly. Not too quiet, suspicious. Genuine humor is rare. But that doesn't matter. What matters is the appearance of cheer, a chorus of gentle chuckles punctuating each anecdote, as if everyone has agreed that the world is perfectly pleasant and absolutely nothing of interest ever happens in your zip code. At the end of the night, as the guests don their coats and thank you for a wonderful evening, you smile, exhausted, knowing you've survived yet another dinner party. You've navigated the minefield of polite society, kept the casseroles upright, and laughed just the right amount. Proof that sometimes mail in the 1950s isn't just communication, it's a minefield. Invitations must be answered promptly, thank you notes handwritten, and under no circumstances can you RSVP maybe. If you forget, your absence will be noted in the neighborhood ledger for generations. Let's set the scene. The mailman arrives each afternoon in his crisply ironed uniform, whistling as he places envelopes in your mailbox. There's a daily thrill in opening the box. Maybe a card from Aunt Marjorie, perhaps a catalogue, but more likely, a cream-colored envelope containing an invitation so formal it makes your palms sweat. The moment you spot those elegant looping letters, Mrs. and Mrs. Bennett request the pleasure of your company. You know you've entered a high-stakes world where response time is everything. The rules are clear, but merciless. If you receive an invitation, you must reply within 3 days, preferably sooner. Prompt isn't just a suggestion, it's the only way to maintain your reputation as a functioning member of society. Anything less, and you'll be labeled as unreliable, unpredictable, or, worst of all, thoughtless. You draft your reply with trembling care, making sure your penmanship is legible and your tone is exactly the right blend of gratitude and enthusiasm. We would be absolutely delighted to attend. Translation: of course we will be there. Please don't talk about me if I'm late. Thank you. Notes follow a different but equally rigid code. Gifts, no matter how small or perplexing. Another set of crocheted pot holders, how thoughtful, must be acknowledged, in writing within a week. The notes are handwritten, no typewriters, and certainly no phone calls. Each word is weighed with the seriousness of a Supreme Court decision. Too short, and you risk seeming ungrateful. Too effusive, and it's obvious you're overcompensating for not knowing what to do with a lemon-shaped soap dish. RSVPs, of course, are the real test. There is no maybe. There is only accept with pleasure or regretfully decline. And even the latter requires a delicate balancing act. Declining an invitation must be wrapped in layers of apology and plausible excuses. Regretfully, we are unable to attend due to a prior engagement, even if that engagement is you, at home, not putting on real pants. Failure to respond is a cardinal sin. Your absence will be marked, your motives discussed at the next PTA meeting, and your name quietly moved down the informal guest list hierarchy. Woe betide the housewife who forgets an RSVP, or worse, attends without having replied. You will be greeted at the door with a smile that never quite reaches the eyes, and a quiet mention of unexpected numbers at the table. It's a scarlet letter moment, one that can haunt you through many a bake sale. Sometimes, of course, the RSVP is a weapon. If there's someone in the neighborhood you'd rather avoid, you can send an accepts with pleasure to every event but hers, creating a slow-moving social avalanche of suspicion and speculation. The experts at this practice can balance alliances and rivalries through nothing more than the strategic timing of a reply, or a lack thereof. It's a sport, and the stakes are higher than you'd ever admit. And then there's the matter of invitations themselves. Handwritten, of course, with perfect cursive and the correct honorifics. Never use a ballpoint pen. Never address an envelope with anything less than your Sunday best. A poorly addressed invitation says, "I thought of you last," or worse, "I lost your address and had to ask Mrs. Jenkins." Reputation is built on ink and envelope glue. Compare this all to today's world of text message, invites, and digital regrets. There's no charm in a maybe on Facebook. No sense of the high-wire act that was the 1950s RSVP. Every letter, every reply, every sly omission was loaded with meaning, history, and the unspoken rules of the neighborhood's ever-watchful eye. So, next time you see an old box of engraved stationery, remember, these weren't just letters. They were chess moves, olive branches, and the subtle declarations of suburban diplomacy, proof that, in the 1950s, etiquette didn't end at the mailbox. It started there. There's always pressure to bring a show-stopping dessert to every event. Your lemon meringue pie must have precisely the correct ratio of tartness to sweetness. And if your crust shrinks, you might as well pack up and move to a new town. Baking, in the 1950s, is not a pastime. It's a competitive sport. The kitchen transforms into an arena, and every Pyrex dish and rolling pin is a piece of weaponry in the unspoken war for neighborhood approval. You rise at dawn, nerves jangling, and begin the sacred ritual, assembling ingredients, checking the recipe, and hoping that this time, please, just this once, the meringue won't collapse like your will to keep up appearances. There are rules, naturally. The recipe is sacred and must be followed with the precision of a NASA engineer prepping for launch. Lemons are squeezed by hand, not from a bottle. The eggs are separated with the gentle touch of a surgeon, and the meringue is whipped until it forms peaks so stiff you could use them to threaten unruly children. Sugar is added slowly, too quickly, and disaster will strike. The filling must be tart but not sour, sweet but not cloying. And the crust, oh the crust, one false move, 1 degree off on the oven, and it will shrink into a soggy, shameful disk, leaving you to contemplate your life, choices, and possible relocation. As you bake, the stakes rise with the scent of lemon filling the house. The neighborhood is awake and alert, every open window, an opportunity for others to sniff the air and draw conclusions. If you're known for your baking, the pressure is doubled. Expectations are high, and failure is not just personal, it's communal. Mrs. Taylor once brought a pie with a cracked meringue, and rumor has it she hasn't been invited to a bridge night since. Transporting your creation is a test of courage and balance. You cradle your pie like a newborn, bracing it against sudden stops, potholes, or rogue squirrels. The anxiety doesn't end until you're through the front door, greeted by a phalanx of women who have already judged your dessert with a glance. You place it on the table with a nonchalance you absolutely do not feel, praying that the meringue still holds, that the crust is golden and not burnt. and that nobody will notice the small crack along the edge. The judging begins long before the first bite. Polite smiles mask the silent calculations. Is her meringue higher than mine? Did she use fresh lemon? Or gasp, lemon extract? Whose pie will disappear first, and whose will linger, untouched, as a symbol of social decline? Compliments are doled out carefully, never too effusive, lest you give away your secret envy. "Oh, you always make the best crusts," someone says. But you can't help but wonder if it's a compliment or a warning shot. The first slice is the most nerve-wracking. Will it hold together or collapse in a gooey mess? You smile serenely as Mrs. Parker takes a bite, hoping she doesn't discover the slightly undercooked bottom or that you swapped butter for shortening at the last minute. Relief washes over you only when the platter is empty and someone asks for the recipe. But even then, the anxiety never truly leaves. You know next time the expectations will be even higher, and should your dessert falter, should the meringue weep or the filling ooze, you accept your fate with a brave face. There is always next week, next month, the chance to redeem yourself with a bundt cake or cherry cobbler. In the 1950s, baking is never just about sugar and flour. It's about status, survival, and the sacred quest for that one perfect lemon meringue pie. Proof that, at least for today, you truly belong. So dust off that rolling pin, set your jaw, and bake like your social life depends on it. Because, in a way, it absolutely does. School meetings are equal parts performance and warfare. You must agree with everyone, contribute just enough to seem helpful, and never suggest anything radical, like changing the color of the gym curtains. It's 7 p.m. and you're sitting in a folding chair that pinches somewhere deeply personal, clutching a notebook that contains mostly doodles and passive-aggressive grocery lists. Around you, the other parents are gathering, eyes darting like wary gazelles at a watering hole. There's a pot of tepid coffee on a card table, a plate of questionable cookies, and the lingering scent of chalk dust and tension. No one is here for fun. Everyone is here because it is required, because attendance will be noted, and because missing a meeting is a silent surrender of influence, social, parental, and otherwise. The opening minutes are a masterclass in suburban diplomacy. The president of the PTA, a woman with a voice so cheerful it borders on hostile, calls the meeting to order. She welcomes everyone and reminds them of the constructive spirit expected, which is code for don't mention the band funding scandal and don't ask what happened to the playground slide. Everyone nods gravely, making careful eye contact, as if pledging allegiance to a fragile peace. Business begins with the reading of last meeting's minutes, a performance best described as interpretive boredom. You practice the correct ratio of nodding. Not too eager. Nobody likes. Try hard. Not too indifferent, they remember. Your mind wanders if you raise your hand. Will it mean you're a volunteer for something or just seeking clarification? The answer is yes. Here, participation is dangerous. Debate begins on fundraising. Suggestions are floated. Bake sales, car washes, raffles. There are rules for this too. Never criticize someone's idea outright. Instead, offer a gentle, "Oh, that's so creative. I wonder if the weather will cooperate," or "Last time was such a big success. Maybe we should try something similar." Radical innovation is frowned upon. Remember the Great Curtain debacle of '53, when Mrs. Jensen suggested turquoise. She's still in social exile, forced to run the lost and found table in perpetuity. Consensus is key, but not too quickly. Agree too fast, and people think you're hiding something. Disagree too loudly, and you're accused of stirring the pot. The safest strategy is to make supportive noises and volunteer for a task just boring enough to prove your commitment without risking real responsibility. Folding programs, for example, or counting tickets. You must always look busy but never indispensable. The line between volunteer and victim is thin and dangerous. Personal rivalries run quietly beneath the surface. The woman who always forgets her cookies for the bake sale, the dad who questions the treasurer's report every month, the clique of parents who somehow decide the school's entire winter pageant theme. You navigate these alliances carefully, swapping small talk and coded compliments. Your brownies are always so moist is both a genuine remark and a subtle warning. Last year, your brownies were dry, and they remember. At some point, the conversation veers perilously close to actual controversy. Budget shortfalls, the new reading curriculum, or why the flagpole still leans at a 17-degree angle. Instantly, everyone becomes a diplomat. Silence descends, broken only by someone suggesting a committee look into it. You jot a note, knowing that committee will never actually meet. When the meeting finally adjourns, you stand, stretch discreetly, and make the slow walkout, waving and exchanging pleasantries. "See you next month," you chirp, as if the past hour has not aged you a year. You survived the PTA meeting's delicate truce, neither victorious nor vanquished, simply present. Another night in the suburban theatre, another day closer to summer break, when the real negotiations begin all over again, and as you drive home, you wonder if anyone noticed your eye twitching when the gym curtains were mentioned. Probably. That's how legends are born. In the 1950s, conversation with men, especially other people's husbands, required the diplomatic subtlety of a United Nations envoy. Laugh at the right jokes, feign surprise at car advice, and never let on that you actually understand the stock market. Picture this. You're at a suburban barbecue. The splank totty dot all. Smoke is wafting, the lemonade is sweating, and the men have gathered in a loose knot around the grill, discussing topics that seem suspiciously dull but are, in fact, high-stakes conversational turf. You approach, plate in hand, navigating the tricky etiquette that governs mixed company interactions. Every word, every gesture, is a performance designed to protect egos, flatter sensibilities, and avoid a neighborhood incident that might end up as a cautionary tale at bridge club. The rules for talking to men are subtle but ironclad. First, never initiate the conversation unless you've been spoken to. Your safest move is a friendly nod, a smile, or the universal opener, "My, the weather certainly turned out nice." If you're greeted with a discussion about lawn care or engine maintenance, you listen attentively and sprinkle your responses with, "Oh, is that so?" and "How interesting." Genuine interest is optional. Plausible deniability is not. Laughter, of course, is part of the script. The correct response to any joke, no matter how many times you've heard it, is polite, slightly delayed laughter, ideally accompanied by a modest tilt of the head. Under no circumstances should you outlaugh the men or, heaven forbid, deliver a punchline of your own. If a man tells a story about the time he put diesel in the lawnmower, you are obligated to find it funnier than the time you fixed the washing machine with nothing but a paper clip and sheer willpower. The conversation may veer into car advice, at which point you must express surprise, admiration, and just enough confusion to let the men explain things in detail. Even if you could replace a spark plug with your eyes closed, now is not the moment to share that information. "I never would have thought to check the carburetor," you exclaim, knowing full well what a carburetor looks like, and, possibly, where to find one in the garage. Financial topics are a minefield. If the talk turns to stocks, bonds, or the merits of saving versus spending, your job is to look intrigued, but not too knowledgeable. Never mention the spreadsheet you keep in your purse. And certainly never let slip that you've read the Wall Street Journal more recently than anyone holding a pair of barbecue tongs. I always trust my husband with those things, you say, all the while mentally noting that you were the one who moved the family out of short-term bonds in 1957, saving the Christmas budget and possibly the marriage. If, by some disaster, the conversation drifts toward politics or world events, you must proceed with extreme caution. A safe comment is, "Oh, I just hope things settle down soon," followed by a gentle redirection toward local sports scores or the upcoming garden show. Any statement resembling an actual opinion can and will be used against you, preferably in the next round of block gossip. You may occasionally find yourself cornered by a man who wants to know your thoughts on home improvement. This is your cue to compliment his tool collection, admire the paint job on the fence, and ask for advice on something you already fixed last weekend. If you're especially daring, ask about the best brand of lawn seed. Then file away the advice for later use in both conversation and passive-aggressive neighborly one-upmanship. All the while, your real thoughts remain safely locked away, shielded behind a wall of bland pleasantries and agreeable nods. It's exhausting, but it's the unspoken code. One small misstep, and you might accidentally reveal you're an actual person with real opinions, capable of running a household and a conversation. And nobody's ready for that, least of all the men. So you keep your secrets, laugh at the right jokes, and, when the moment is right, make your escape to the lemonade table, knowing that the true art of 1950s etiquette is not just what you say, but what you politely and cleverly keep to yourself. Managing your in-laws is a delicate operation. The key is to appear grateful, never contradict, and serve their favorite foods without admitting you used instant mashed potatoes. Survival depends on never letting them see you sweat. Let's set the scene. The doorbell rings at exactly 2 p.m. Not a minute early, not a minute late. You have spent the last 4 hours in a frenzy of dusting, vacuuming, and whispering desperate prayers to the gods of gravy. Your husband paces nervously. The children have been threatened into temporary silence, and even the dog has sensed the mood, retiring to a quiet corner to avoid collateral damage. The moment your in-laws cross the threshold, your home becomes a battlefield disguised as a living room. Your mother-in-law surveys the space with the keen eye of a military inspector. She notes the placement of the doilies, the shininess of the floor, the exact temperature of the iced tea. You greet her with a smile so bright it could melt linoleum, offering compliments on her hat, her shoes, and her remarkable talent for arriving just as the Jell-o salad has reached peak wobble. The first order of business is establishing authority. Hers, not yours. "Oh, I would have put the serving spoons on the left, but this is charming, dear," she says, before rearranging the cutlery with the delicate precision of a bomb squad technician. Your job is to nod appreciatively and murmur, "Of course. Thank you for the tip." Do not, under any circumstances, mention that you spent an hour consulting an etiquette manual. Your father-in-law, meanwhile, settles into the armchair with a heavy sigh, ready to offer opinions on lawn care, government spending, and the superiority of his childhood dentist. Dinner is the real proving ground. Your in-laws have specific tastes: pot roast, potatoes, not too much garlic, and absolutely no foreign spices. You serve with a steady hand, dishing up perfectly portioned helpings and answering questions about the recipe with a smile and a skillful omission of from a box. If your mother-in-law asks how you got the potatoes so smooth, you mention elbow grease, not the dehydrated flakes you whisked with cold milk at 11:30 a.m. Honesty is not the best policy here. Plausible deniability is the cornerstone of familial peace. Conversation is another obstacle course. You nod at stories you've heard a dozen times. Did I ever tell you about the time we camped in Wisconsin in 32? Two. Laugh politely at jokes that expired during the Truman administration. And never, ever contradict a single statement. If you're feeling daring, you may try to steer the conversation towards safe topics, weather, gardening, church bazaars, anything less risky than discussing current events or, heaven forbid, your own parenting strategies. All the while, you are acutely aware that everything is being graded on a secret in-law scorecard. The children's haircuts, the pattern of the curtains, even the scent of the bathroom soap. Nothing escapes notice. If your toddler spills milk, you leap into action before a single drop hits the floor, offering a napkin and a smile, as if this is all part of your well-rehearsed plan. The key is to project an aura of calm competence, no matter how many small disasters unfold behind the scenes. Dessert brings a moment of truth. If your pie crust is flaky, you earn a rare nod of approval. If it's a little tough, you smile and pretend you prefer it that way. Under no circumstances do you accept help clearing the table, unless you want to risk your mother-in-law discovering the brand of dish soap you use, not the one she recommended, of course. When the visit finally ends, you wave goodbye with genuine relief, close the door, and exhale. You have survived another encounter with the occupying forces. The living room is slightly rearranged, the children are quietly shell-shocked, and the gravy boat is missing in action. But you made it through without breaking a sweat, at least not where anyone could see. In the secret annals of suburban warfare, that counts as victory. Serving a boxed cake is both a modern convenience and a potential scandal. If you use one, hide the evidence. If it turns out better than homemade, prepare for a suspicious investigation from your baking peers. In 1950s suburbia, baking isn't just a kitchen activity. It's a competitive sport with rules more tangled than the instructions on a box of Betty Crocker's latest yellow cake mix. The question of homemade versus boxed cake divides communities, topples friendships, and keeps housewives up at night, plotting their next move while pretending to read Good Housekeeping. Let's set the scene. It's a Tuesday afternoon, and you've just remembered that you promised a dessert for tonight's neighborhood potluck. There are children to corral, laundry to fold, and a pot roast on its third hour of slow surrender. The clock is ticking. You glance at the pantry. There it is. The clock is forbidden fruit, a bright, cheerful box promising fresh, fluffy cake in minutes. The temptation is strong. The cake mix sings a siren song of ease. Just add eggs, water, oil, stir, and bake. But in the world beyond your kitchen, the politics of cake are anything but simple. The risk? If you make a boxed cake and anyone finds out, you risk being gently exiled to the culinary outskirts of the neighborhood, invited to fewer gatherings, eyed suspiciously in the produce aisle, whispered about during bridge. No one says it out loud, but everyone knows. Homemade is a badge of honor. Boxed is well. Boxed, but you're practical. And there's just not enough time for sifting flour and separating eggs. With a guilty glance toward the window, you dump the mix in a bowl, whip it into submission, and pour it into the pan. As it bakes, you incinerate the evidence, tear the box into tiny shreds, and bury it beneath a mountain of potato peelings, just in case a neighbor drops by unexpectedly and peeks in your trash. The real tension begins at the party, when dessert is served. If your cake is perfectly moist, everyone wants the recipe. You deflect. Oh, it's just a little something I threw together. If pressed, you mention my own twist, which, in this case, is the box's suggestion to substitute milk for water. Your cake is met with suspicious admiration. Mrs. Parker narrows her eyes. So light, so even. Did you use a sifter, dear? You laugh breezily, feigning modesty while your internal monologue is pure panic. If you're lucky, the conversation turns to someone else's lemon bars, and you've escaped scrutiny for another week. But there's always the risk that your cake will turn out too good, better than Mrs. Jenkins' made from scratch chocolate marvel. That's when the real investigation begins. There will be whisper campaigns, covert glances, and, inevitably, an invitation for you to bake together sometime, which is suburban code for "I'm watching you." On the flip side, serving a homemade cake comes with its own pressure. It must be tender, but not crumbly, sweet but not cloying, and, most importantly, identifiably homemade. A crooked layer or lopsided frosting is the surest way to telegraph your authenticity. The boxed cake is simply too perfect, too uniform, too free of anxiety and self-doubt. As the 1950s roll on, cake mix manufacturers start to fight back, launching ad campaigns that reassure women they're not cheating. They're modern, efficient, savvy. So easy you'll have time for you, the ads declare. But in the trenches of the PTA bake sale, the judgment is slow to fade. So you live a double life. A secret agent of convenience, armed with boxed mix and plausible deniability. When someone praises your dessert, you smile and accept the compliment, while privately vowing to someday master the 7-layer tort that will end all debate. Because in the world of 1950s etiquette, a cake is never just a cake. It's a symbol, a statement, and, if you play your cards right, the sweetest kind of suburban victory. Barbecues sound fun, but etiquette rules apply here too. From the correct side dishes, potato salad, always to the right way to complement your neighbor's questionable grilling technique, it's all about balance and not setting the picnic table on fire. It's a Saturday afternoon in July, the air humming with the promise of overcooked hamburgers and sunburn. You step out into the yard with a bowl of your finest potato salad, sunglasses perched on your nose, and a secret hope that the mosquitoes will go easy on you this year. The grill is already smoking, manned by someone's husband who has declared himself king of the coals despite only grilling 3 times a year and burning all the chicken at least twice. The first rule: never arrive empty-handed. If you bring a salad, it must be potato, bonus points for dill, but pasta is an acceptable substitute just as long as it isn't too fancy. If your dish has ingredients like capers or artichokes, expect side eyes and whispered judgments about trying too hard. Store-bought coleslaw is a risky move, but can be disguised by transferring it to your own bowl and tossing a few carrot shavings on top for authenticity. The etiquette here is simple. If it looks homemade, it counts. Seating is an exercise in diplomacy. Claim a spot under the one patch of shade, and you're considered cunning, but don't linger so long that others notice. The good folding chairs always go first. So, if you get stuck with a rusty lawn chair that creaks ominously, smile through it. You wouldn't want anyone to think you're ungrateful. When the inevitable breeze sends napkins and plastic cutlery flying, join the chorus of polite laughter and chase after them, as if this were all part of the entertainment. Now, the grill. The barbecue is less a communal cooking experience and more a stage for masculine bravado. The grill master takes his job seriously, armed with tongs and an apron that says, "Kiss the cook," as if daring anyone to question his authority. Even if the hot dogs are charred and the burgers are suspiciously pink in the center, you offer enthusiastic compliments. "So juicy," you say, chewing with determination. If someone brings up last year's unfortunate incident with the salmon, quickly steer the conversation to the merits of charcoal versus gas. Above all, Never attempt to take over at the grill unless you're prepared for a duel. Conversations at a barbecue are their own minefield. Topics must be light and suitable for outdoor ears: sports, garden pests, the perils of neighborhood raccoons. Anything deeper than lawn care will be met with a swift change of subject. Watch as Mrs. Jensen tries, yet again, to get someone to talk about the school board election. Notice how everyone suddenly needs another scoop of ambrosia salad. And then there are the children, running wild, wielding sticks, and occasionally launching water balloons with the precision of artillery gunners. The trick is to act as though you are supervising them, while simultaneously enjoying your lemonade and scanning the crowd for potential gossip. Cleanup is a subtle race. Too eager and you look like you want everyone to leave. Too slow and you risk being handed a garbage bag. Aim for the sweet spot. Help stack the plates. Make a few self-deprecating jokes about your infamous potato salad, and slip away before anyone can ask you to haul the trash to the curb. As the sun goes down and the fireflies come out, you exhale. You've survived another barbecue, no major fires, minimal drama, and only a few singed eyebrows. You gather your now empty bowl, or more likely, return home with leftovers and a fresh serving of gossip. Because in the delicate world of the 1950s summer barbecue, etiquette is just as important as the secret ingredient in your potato salad, and possibly the only thing standing between you and total social combustion. At some point, the pressure of perfection cracks even the most composed housewife. Whether it's sobbing in a linen closet or taking a quick walk that lasts 3 hours, there are rules for this too. Always emerge with your hair brushed, your smile fixed, and your emotional crisis tastefully denied. Picture the scene. It's Thursday afternoon. The dog has tracked muddy paw prints across your freshly mopped kitchen. The roast is still frozen solid, and your youngest has just performed modern art with a jar of grape jelly and the living room drapes. You stare at the chaos, clutching a dish towel like a lifeline, and feel the first tectonic tremors of a meltdown rumbling just beneath the surface. But this is the 1950s. Emotional displays are to be conducted in strict privacy. Public breakdowns are reserved for soap operas and people from broken homes. So you excuse yourself with the grace of someone headed to powder their nose, slip down the hall, and wedge yourself into the linen closet with a sigh that echoes through 3 layers of floral bedsheets. Here, surrounded by the scent of lavender sachets and slightly musty towels, you can finally let the mask slip. You indulge in a minute or 5 of silent screaming, perhaps a quiet, dignified sob, or a muttered monologue questioning why anyone needs to starch pillowcases in the first place. You fantasize about boarding a train to Chicago under an assumed name, or at the very least, hiding out in the garage until the next decade. Even the act of breaking down must be handled with etiquette. You keep tissues hidden in strategic places, behind the spare sheets, inside your sewing box, tucked discreetly in your apron pocket, because nothing says composure like being able to dab at your eyes without rummaging desperately. If your meltdown involves tears, you pinch your cheeks for a touch of color before stepping back out. If it involves fury, you smooth your hair, straighten your skirt, and practice your perfectly fine thank you face in the hall mirror. If you prefer the outdoors, a quick walk around the block is an acceptable excuse. Neighbors know this code. Nobody questions a woman briskly circling the neighborhood in her best slacks, jaw clenched, eyes fixed on the middle distance. Sometimes, a sympathetic nod is exchanged with another housewife walking the opposite direction, both of you passing like ships in a sea of quiet desperation. When the storm passes, you return home, let yourself back in with a soft click, and set about restoring order. You pick up the grape jelly artwork, start dinner, and hum a little to show the children that all is well. You smile at your husband as he walks in, never mentioning the existential unraveling you just performed in the linen closet. If asked, "Are you all right?" the correct response is always, "Of course, dear, just a little tired." There are, of course, limits. If you ever find yourself shrieking at the Hoover or weeping over a scorched casserole in full view of the neighbors, damage control must be swift and decisive. Blame allergies, or the onions, or say you were laughing at a funny radio program. The important thing is to re-establish calm, smooth the hair, reapply lipstick, and get back to your day. And while the standards may seem absurd, there's a strange comfort in these rituals. The rules are the scaffolding that keep everything upright, even when you feel like falling apart. Everyone, beneath the surface, is pretending, navigating breakdowns with the same precision they apply to ironing napkins or arranging roses. So, should you find yourself on the brink, remember, etiquette extends even to your lowest moments. Have your private meltdown, gather yourself, and step out with your dignity intact. After all, perfection is a myth, but surviving the day, messy feelings and all, is a quiet, noble victory. You know the towels I mean, the ones that live in the guest bathroom, starched into rectangles and possibly sprayed with the same perfume used by minor European royalty. In the 1950s, using a company towel for actual drying is a crime on par with arson. These towels exist solely to impress your mother-in-law and to absorb the gentle humidity of the air. Your hands? Wipe them on your skirt like everyone else. Just make sure no one's watching. It's a Saturday morning, and you're doing the weekly inventory. Bathroom gleaming, soap dish aligned at a 90-degree angle, and on the rack, there they are, your pride and terror, 2 pristine company towels, folded so sharply you could use them to slice bread. You don't know exactly when this ritual started, but you do know it will never, ever end, as long as there's a remote possibility that a neighbor, friend, or critical relative might wander through your guest bathroom. The secret is in the presentation. Company towels must look untouched, almost sacred, as if they're not so much fabric as they are holy relics from a monastery specializing in passive aggression. They are starched until they stand at attention, arranged so that the monogram faces outward, and spritzed lightly with eau de linen, the same scent that lingers in department stores and on wealthy aunts. The ordinary hand towels are hidden, tucked behind the radiator, or stuffed into a cabinet, ready for actual emergencies, which in this case means spilled nail polish or a sudden burst pipe. You instruct the children, don't touch the company towels. You remind your husband, who will inevitably forget and dry his hands on one the day your mother-in-law drops by unannounced. The resulting gasp when she notices the faintest rumple is enough to curdle fresh milk. "Oh dear, I see you've used the good towels," she'll say, voice sweet as cyanide. "How nice." Guests, of course, are expected to know the rules without ever being told. The unspoken etiquette is that company towels are for display only, like the fruit in a wax bowl or the guest soaps shaped like seashells. Lovely to look at, disastrous to use. Should an innocent visitor make the fatal mistake, the evidence is immediate. A telltale crease, a damp spot, the scent of hand lotion clashing with the faint aroma of lavender. You notice instantly, and the rest of the evening is spent in a delicate dance of pretending not to care while mentally calculating the time needed to restarch and refold. This isn't just about towels, of course. It's about the image. The idea that your household is so perfectly run, so abundantly blessed with textiles, that you can afford to keep towels no one will ever touch. It's a performance, one that every 1950s housewife plays. A subtle signal to the world that, yes, you are prepared for company at a moment's notice, and no, you would never dream of letting your actual hand towels see the light of day. There are elaborate contingency plans. Some families deploy decoy towels, a perfect set placed in front of the true company towels as a sacrificial offering to unsuspecting guests. Others rely on silent signals, a subtle repositioning of the soap, a decorative ribbon, or the strategic placement of a single, intimidatingly large seashell. Only the bravest or most oblivious will dare to disturb the perfection. If, somehow, the company towels are used and you are caught unprepared, damage control is essential. You rush to the bathroom, remove the compromised towels, and replace them with fresh ones before anyone can gossip. Oh, those? They were just out for washing, you'll say. Voice light as air, though your hands are trembling from the adrenaline rush of averted disaster. The absurdity is clear. But in the tightly choreographed ballet of 1950s etiquette, it's the details that matter. The company towels stand as both a symbol and a warning. Appearances are everything, and the difference between order and chaos is sometimes just one forbidden towel away. Carpooling sounds like teamwork, but it's actually a weekly audition for the role of most reliable parent. Scheduling pickups, memorizing every child's allergies, and driving with both hands at 10 and 2 is the minimum standard. If you forget a seatbelt or show up late, brace yourself for a stern phone call and subtle exile at the next bake sale. Forget to smile at the stop sign? You may never be invited to carpool again. And good luck explaining that to your kids. It's 7:05 a.m. and you're staring down a handwritten schedule that's color-coded, cross-referenced, and threatening to unravel your entire week. The phone rings. Donnelly is calling to say her youngest has a sore throat, so now you'll need to shuffle booster seats and rejuggle pickup times. Somewhere in the background, your own children are performing their own chaotic warm-up routine, arguing about who gets the good seat and which snack is least likely to result in car-wide mutiny. Being a carpool driver in the 1950s isn't just a favor, it's a sacred trust. You are responsible for precious cargo, 6 children, 3 lunchboxes, a clarinet, and enough permission slips to wallpaper the garage. Your station wagon is scrubbed clean, inside and out, with emergency tissues in the glove compartment and an entire box of peppermints ready for bribes or peace offerings. The journey itself is a test of nerves and etiquette. Each child must be greeted by name, their parents' latest achievements acknowledged. Oh, I heard Janie got a star in spelling, and shoes checked for mud before they're allowed within 10 feet of your upholstery. Allergies must be memorized with the seriousness of medical school finals. Johnny can't have peanuts, Susie's sensitive to citrus, and Timmy breaks out in hives at the mere mention of raisins. The lunchbox exchange is a silent ballet, and woe betide the mother who forgets that today is hot dog day in the cafeteria. Your hands grip the steering wheel at exactly 10 and 2, knuckles white with the strain of keeping order in a moving madhouse. Small talk is required, but must remain strictly neutral. Favorite school subjects. Which teacher is nice but strict? Who has the best collection of baseball cards? Anything more personal or less appropriate, and you risk scandal, a phone call, and the distinct possibility of being replaced in next week's rotation. Timeliness is the true measure of your worth. Arriving even a minute late sets off a domino effect of anxiety. Mothers waiting at the curb tap their watches and make notes. Children look at you with a blend of disappointment and existential dread. If they're tardy, the shame will echo for generations. Early arrivals, however, are just as fraught. You must never look too eager, lest you seem desperate for approval, or, worse, that you have nothing better to do than circle the block in your sensible sedan. The return trip is its own challenge. Backpacks multiply, Snack wrappers migrate under seats, and the children are wild with post-school energy. A minor squabble breaks out over a trading card, and you mediate with the wisdom of Solomon, all while navigating the world's slowest left turn as Mrs. Jensen waves you past her hydrangeas with imperial dignity. When the last child is safely delivered, you breathe a sigh of relief, check the back seat for forgotten mittens, and mentally rehearse tomorrow's schedule. If you did everything right, no accidents, no tears, no late arrivals, you might earn a whispered compliment at next week's coffee morning, a subtle nod of approval that says you've passed the carpool gauntlet for another cycle. But let your standards slip, late for pickup, miss a turn, let someone forget their clarinet, and the consequences are swift and social. Your name quietly drops from the rotation. Your kids ask why the Johnsons don't ride with you anymore, and you find yourself inexplicably in charge of cupcakes for the spring fundraiser. Carpooling in the 1950s. Equal parts logistics, politics, and high-stakes etiquette. Buckle up, smile at every stop sign, and remember, the true road to social acceptance is always paved with good intentions and at least 3 emergency snacks. Every week, you're expected to present yourself at the local beauty parlor like a gladiator entering the arena, only with more hairspray and fewer lions. The real game isn't getting your curls just right. It's surviving the onslaught of gossip. Fail to act shocked at the latest scandal, and you're marked as suspiciously indifferent. But share too much, and you become this week's main course. In the end, it's less about hair and more about escaping with your secrets and your dignity. Let's set the scene. It's Friday morning, and the air is thick with anticipation and aquanet. The beauty parlor is already humming with the low buzz of gossip, the click-clack of curlers, and the sharp, anticipatory snap of a fresh vinyl cape. Rows of hairdryers line the walls like futuristic sentinels, each one roaring with the secrets of a dozen households. There is the faint, ever-present scent of perm solution and the underlying electric tension of unsaid truths. You take your place in the faded mint green chair, clutching your magazine, not to read, but as a shield against stray glances. Your stylist, Marge, approaches with a comb and a conspiratorial wink. She's heard everything, knows everyone, and could topple the local social order with a single well. I really shouldn't say, but the rules of engagement are clear. Greet everyone, offer a compliment. Oh, Doris, your highlights are so bright this week, and prepare to navigate the labyrinth of salon small talk. The conversation begins innocently enough: weather, last week's church bazaar, someone's prize-winning begonias. But it only takes one offhand remark. Did you hear about Betty's new mailman? To set off a chain reaction. Within minutes, the salon hums with stories. Mrs. Peterson's mysterious shopping trips, the reason Mr. Jenkins is always working late, and the curious case of the Johnsons' backyard fence, now painted blue, which everyone agrees is both bold and deeply suspicious. As you're spun under the dryer, the real performance begins. You must react with just the right amount of shock. She did what? Sympathy, bless her heart, and nonchalance, well, I suppose we all have our little secrets. Misjudge your expression, and you're instantly cast as either complicit or clueless. Too animated, and your story becomes tomorrow's headline. Too bland, and you risk being ignored, which in the beauty parlor is social death. Sharing is a careful balancing act. A minor confession, I burnt the meatloaf again, earns solidarity and laughter. Reveal too much. Sometimes I dream of moving to Paris with the TV repairman, and you'll feel the temperature drop 3 degrees. The best strategy is to sprinkle your conversation with harmless anecdotes, preferably involving children, pets, or misunderstood neighbors. Above all, Never reveal anything that can be traced back to you in next week's salon session. All the while, your hair is being teased, curled, and sprayed within an inch of its life. The taller the hair, the greater the status, or so the local legend goes. You emerge from under the dryer with a helmet of hair so solid it could withstand a Midwestern tornado. You pay the bill, tip generously, insurance against accidental revelation, and check your reflection, hair perfect, secrets intact. But escape isn't assured until you've made it past the reception desk. There's always a parting shot. "Say hi to your husband for me," loaded with subtext and at least 3 layers of gossip. You nod, gather your things, and step back into the world. Slightly dazed but victorious. You have survived another week. Your curls immaculate. Your dignity mostly untouched. And your secrets, for now, still your own. Because in the wild world of 1950s suburbia, the real art of the beauty parlor isn't the hair, it's espionage, and nobody wants to be the main headline under the next dryer. So here you are, drifting at the edge of sleep, pearls slightly askew, lipstick still fresh in your dreams. Tonight, you've survived the wild social jungle of the 1950s housewife, a world where even salad forks have battle plans, and a single unironed napkin can unravel years of careful reputation building. You've navigated a landscape of gloves, casserole catastrophes, and unspoken neighborhood treaties. You've weathered the panic of unannounced visitors, the terror of mismatched towels, and the relentless competition of who can bake the fluffiest lemon meringue pie. You've mastered the delicate choreography of coffee mornings, Tupperware diplomacy, and the complex signals sent by backyard laundry lines. All in a day's work, plus a meltdown or two, executed with discreet, almost heroic style. It's easy to laugh at the absurdities, and we should. The rules were ridiculous, the pressures enormous, and the standards impossible. But behind all the etiquette and polite facades was a quiet kind of courage, a determination to build community, keep the peace, and find joy, or at least dark humor, in the daily grind. Every awkward curtsy, every forced smile, every perfectly crisp shirt was a tiny act of resistance against the chaos and uncertainty of post-war life. In the end, these women weren't just following rules. They were making sense of a world that kept moving the goalposts and inventing new salad recipes just to keep things interesting. So, as you settle deeper into your bed, unironed sheets and all, maybe whisper a soft thanks for the modern comforts you have now. No one's judging your towel folding technique. You're free to eat Jell-o or not, to let your hemline wander, to say no to PTA, meetings, and to answer your phone in pajamas. You survived another night in history's funhouse, and that's something to celebrate, because if there's one thing the past can teach us, it's that people have always found ways to endure, to improvise, and, sometimes, to laugh at the impossible. History may be absurd, but so are we. And that, maybe, is the best comfort of all. Good night, and may your dreams be free of surprise.